chapter 4. So Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well, and it was about noon. Verse 7 says, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman says to him, you're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock? And Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And the woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. And he told her, go and call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. And Jesus says to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. Sir, the woman said, I can see that you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. Woman, Jesus replied, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. And then Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. And just then the disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and made their way toward him. I wanted to read through that whole story just so that we can get an understanding, especially if you've never read this story before, just so you get an understanding of the concept and the background to what I'm about to talk about here. Because what I want to talk about on the subject that I've called Why Jesus. Why Jesus was the title of my sermon for next Sunday. And today's title was going to be an is. I've got what you need. I've got what you need. And then next week I was going to talk on why Jesus, but I thought I can slip this under why Jesus, and I can make it a series out of it. So the series will be why Jesus. Out of everything that we could ever do in life, or every person that we could come into contact with, or religion that we could follow, why Jesus? Why should it be Jesus over all of these other religions? Or why should it be Jesus at all? Maybe some of you are here and you know what? You're doing pretty good in life. Maybe you've got a good, decent job. You've got a well-paying job. You've got a career and life's good. You've got a home. You've got a family. You've got a car on the road and everything's going well. So why Jesus? Why do I want to introduce religion into my life? Why do I want to introduce God into my life? Why Jesus at all? We're actually going to deal with this more so next week. But for today, why Jesus? Because Jesus has got what you need. You may have what you want, but he's got what you need. We are sold on need today. Advertisers are spending billions. Companies are spending, it's a multi-billion pound industry, advertising, where companies are spending absolute billions on trying to sell us something that we don't actually need, but having watched the advert, we think, I need that. Anybody ever been there? We are like, I've got to go and buy that. And so we go. The one advert that really got me as a kid growing up was the old Harp advert. You remember the Harp advert, Boneyard, where they're making the big silver car? And it's got the guy, and he's doing the welding, and he's sweating, the sweat's pouring off him. And it cuts to, I'm licking my lips even as I'm speaking about it, and I'm visualizing this. And it's got this pint of Harp. I'm like 12 years of age, so I can't drink a pint of Harp, but, I wanted one. And the best I could do was go into the kitchen and pour a bottle of Sprite. And but of course, we didn't have Sprite in those days. We had Yellow Pack lemon and lime, okay? And because we didn't have enough money to go and spend on the real stuff, so we couldn't afford Sprite, so we got the Yellow Pack lemon and lime, which we were told was just as good and was the same, but it really wasn't. And we got a Sprite bottle, and we would pour the Yellow Pack lemon and lime into the Sprite bottle, and the Sprite bottle we put into the fridge, and yeah, we were sold like it was the same stuff, and it wasn't. And we're going to pour this Yellow Pack lemon and lime and to quench my thirst, but I'm thinking, what would a tin of Harp or this glass of Harp taste like? Would that be okay? But no, it wouldn't. Wouldn't be, not at 12 years of age, and I've never had a pint of Harp in my life, just to let you know that there. And we're sold this image of, you've got to go and get this. There's a reason why whenever you go into Tesco's and Asda and into your supermarkets, why they've got the sweets and the chocolate at the counter whenever you're scanning through your items, because they know the mummies that bring the kids are going to want the sweets, and they sell them to the kids, and they know that the kids are going to nag the mummies to get the sweets. And sometimes what we also do as well is we buy stuff on impulse. We see an advertisement or we see something in the shop and go, I've got to get that. We don't need it, but we're sold it as this is something that you need. You cannot do without this. Anybody ever buy anything on impulse? A few people. I'll tell you a couple of stories about buying stuff on impulse. Because my father is one for buying stuff on impulse. I've probably shared these stories with you before, but today is a good day to bring them up again. Again, back in the days of the Harp adverts in the 1980s, you remember the old, we didn't have digital cameras back then. It was the film roll that you would put into the cameras, and you would have to pull the film out, and then you stuck it into the camera, you stretched it across, pulled it over, and then you wound it up till you heard the click. Once you heard the click, John, you remember that, don't you? And once you heard the click, then you were good to go. And you never knew what the photographs were like. There was no such thing as selfies, where you took a photograph and then you deleted it and took one until you were, there's no, what did they do on Instagram, where they change it all so they look better than what they actually do. And it was just whatever came out. And so we're in Portrush, and Dad goes in this shop, and he sees this, the film roll was, I don't know, maybe say like $1.99 for one film roll. And he comes across this shop where he sees this picture frame and 2 film roll, and it's like $1.99 for the 2 film roll and for the picture frame. And he thinks that's a good deal. So he buys the 2 film roll and gets the picture frame, and away he goes. And he's got a smile on his face because it's like he got a twofer. A 2-for-1 deal here. And he's thinking, this is the best day of my life ever. And he's walking up, and he's going back to the car, big smile on his face. And he's thinking, you know what, this is too good a deal. I've got to go back again. And he goes back, and he gets another twofer, another 2 film roll for 1. And gets the picture frame as well. And gets home that night and pulls out the camera and pulls out the film roll. And he's trying to pull out the film. And where's the film? This is just his life in a nutshell, really. And he can't find the film. And he's wondering what's going on. So he goes and he gets another one, and he's trying to find the film, and there's no film. He pulls out all 4 and no film in any of them. And he's like, I've been stroked here. And I was like, yeah, that's you. That's the story of your life. And what it turned out was the picture frame. Actually, these were feet for the picture frame and weren't film roll at all. Impulse buys. He had the old Viking what do you call it, catalog to buy, and if you spent like over £50, then you got this free briefcase and calculator. So he's thinking, great, a free briefcase and calculator. This one is good. There are some moments in life that you will just never forget. And so he gets, like whenever you've got to spend £50 to get something and you just hit the £50, £50 and a penny just to get over that line. And so he tallies up everything that he gets, all the paper and the pens and everything and the flip chart stuff, and he gets to the £50 and he thinks, bang, I've done it. I'm going to get a free briefcase and a calculator. And he's waiting on the stuff arriving, and it's like Christmas time. Whenever the van pulls up, he's like, yeah, my free briefcase and calculator has arrived. Forget about all the other stuff that I've been ordering. And he goes through all the stuff, and he's got all the paper and the pens and everything that he'd ordered. It's all there. Where's my free briefcase and calculator? And it's not there. Suddenly, he sees this small package, and he opens it up, and inside the package is a briefcase that's about that size. It's about 2 inches wide with a calculator inside it. And he pulls out the calculator, he's showing me, look, and the picture in the catalogue was the size of the page in the catalogue, so it looked big in the picture, but in reality it was this: impulse buys. We're not even going to talk about the windowsills, we'll leave that for another time. That's between the family. And we buy these things because we're told we need these things. And we're sold on impulse, and we're sold on need, when in reality, maybe we don't actually need them. Maybe there's just something in us that says, wouldn't it be good to have that? Life would be better, and on some occasions, yes, it is. But we're sold these things on need, and we get it into our heads, I need this. But what do we actually need? There's a guy called Maslow. Maslow is like a psychologist, and he's not a Christian. He's a humanist, so we wouldn't have a lot in common. But Maslow came up with these 5 it's his, I don't know if it's a theory, it's a concept, a hierarchy, what's called a hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom, Maslow, he says this, he says, we've got these physiological needs. This is like ground level. This is like our basic needs of like food and oxygen and air and warmth, those sorts of things for our bodies. So we've got a need for our bodies that we need to eat, that we need to drink, that we need warmth, that we need shelter, that we need food, all of those things. And then he says the next one up is a need for safety, a need to feel safe and secure, a need to feel like things are going to be okay. And then the third one, the next one up from this here, so he has it like it's what's called a hierarchy. So you go from doing those basic needs to the next thing that you want is to feel safe, to the next thing that you want that you feel like you need is to belong. And so that's where community and family comes in, that we feel like we need to be a part of something. We need to be connected to something. And then it goes on to self-esteem, this need to feel I'm okay, that I'm part of something, that I've got this self-esteem, that I'm aware of who I am, that identity, I think, comes into that there, to having that secure identity, just to this self-esteem and what we do, which leads then to what we call self-actualization, that you're making a difference and that you're achieving your dreams and your plans and your purposes and what you actually want to do with your life. And so Maslow has what's called this hierarchy of needs. And even though he's not a Christian and we wouldn't have a lot in common, a lot of what he has touched on here, in fact, everything that I would say is touched on, I would certainly agree with, but I can relate it to God. Because what I find is that every one of those needs that Maslow talks about, we find in God. We find in a man called Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God. The story that we've just read about this woman, it's about a woman who's got needs, who's got great needs, who's got deep needs. And what we read in this story is that Jesus has had to leave Judea, because he's being persecuted by the religious people. We don't believe that Christianity is a religion. It was never supposed to be a religion. Jesus Christ didn't come to start a religion. He came to have relationship with us. And so he's being persecuted by the religious people. and they're going to attack him. And so he gets word of it, and he says, you know what, let's head north. And what it says at the start of John chapter 4 is that Jesus had to go through Samaria. There's a lot of things wrong with that statement, because Jesus didn't actually have to go through Samaria. Jews didn't go through Samaria. You have Judea down at the bottom, and it's saying that he's going to go up to Galilee, up north, the northern part of Israel. And it says he had to go through Samaria. What would happen is the Jews would go around Samaria. Jews would not cut through Samaria. They would avoid Samaria. They didn't like Samaritans. They didn't like the Samaritans. They didn't like Samaria. They would go nowhere near it. And so whenever it comes to this point of Jesus being at this well, this is why the woman is taken aback. What are you doing here? You're a Jewish man. You shouldn't be here, and you shouldn't be talking to me. But it says Jesus had to go through Samaria. The reason Jesus had to go through Samaria was he had to meet this woman. And Jesus will go wherever he needs to go, be wherever he needs to be, do whatever he needs to do in order to reach you. And he doesn't care how far he has to travel, how far he has to go. Jesus will go wherever he needs to go and do whatever it takes in order to reach us. That's Christianity. He will go as far as the cross just to reach us. Religion is man trying to earn his way to God. Christianity is God reaching down to us, to where we are. And there is a woman who is in great need. Jesus decides, I've got to go meet her. And so he comes to this well. This woman shows up. It's a bit strange. There are a number of reasons why this is strange. Number one, for the timing of it, because it's the middle of the day. The women wouldn't go to collect the water in the middle of the day whenever the sun is highest in the sky. They would go in the morning time, and they would go in the cool of the evening. They wouldn't go during the day whenever the sun's shining, whenever it's hot, carrying a big water pot back to the city, back to the village, back to their home. This woman is traveling. She's walking out in the middle of the day. Why is she doing that? It's one thing that's wrong. The second thing that was shared is we've got a Jewish man here now talking to a Samaritan woman. And she pulls up to the well, and Jesus begins to speak to her, begins to interact with her, begins to have a conversation and asks her a question. Can you get me a drink of water, please? And she's immediately like, what are you doing here? You're a Jewish man. You shouldn't be here, let alone talking to me, a Samaritan woman. There is so much that is wrong with this picture. Jesus will go wherever he needs to go to reach who he needs to reach. And he begins to talk to the woman and asks her for a drink. And she's like, what are you on about? Why are you here? You want a drink? And they begin to have this conversation. And as Jesus asks her for a drink and she begins to answer and is confused about what's going on, Jesus then talks to her. And in verse 10, Maggie, the slide is on there. Verse 10, it says, Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. Jesus says, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never, ever thirst again. Indeed, the water I give them will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming back here to draw water. Jesus was in effect saying to this woman, I've got what you need. I think Jesus knew her story, and we're about to find out what her story is. But we get an insight now into this woman and into her life. And she says, and so Jesus says to her, okay, go call your husband and come back here to me. And she replies, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true. Now we understand why this woman is by herself. 5 husbands. The man that she's with now is not her husband. I get a feeling that maybe she was the talk of the town. I get a feeling that she was maybe the talk of the other women in the city. I got a feeling that maybe she was trying to avoid others. And that's why she was coming in the middle of the day, because she knew no one is going to be about here. I'm going to be by myself. I'm not going to be meeting anybody. I'm not going to have anybody staring at me. I'm not going to have anybody giggling at me. I'm not going to have anybody sticking knives in my back. I'm not going to have anybody talking about me. I get to go by myself, do what I got to do, and get home away from everybody. She's avoiding people. And right at that moment is whenever she meets Jesus Christ, the one who has what she needs. And this conversation ensues between the two of them. Get me a drink. You've got nothing to draw with. They have this conversation, and then Jesus says to her, if you knew who it was offering you this water, then this would be something that is going to change your life, because you're never going to thirst again. And what's interesting now is her reaction, the kind of change in her, because she is now, okay, sir, I want this water. But the reason why she wants the water, she says, is give me this water so I don't have to keep coming back to this well. You see, she was avoiding people. And what would be better is not having to come back at all. And I think at some level, she didn't get what was on offer here. Because what Jesus was offering her was so much greater than just not having to come back to a well every day. I think sometimes what we get in our mindset whenever it comes to Christianity is this basic understanding. It's not even an understanding, I don't think. Because the thing that we think of, especially as, before you became a Christian, you had this kind of like reluctance, because maybe in your head it was, well, if I become a Christian, I can't do this anymore, and I can't do that anymore, and I can't do this anymore, and I can't do... Anybody ever have those thoughts? And it put you off becoming a Christian. But when what you realize is, whenever you become a Christian, whenever you become a follower of Jesus, then all of these things fade away. And you're like, I don't even know why I did them in the first place. I don't even know why I would want to go back to them. And suddenly, the thing that was holding you back was no longer an issue. Because the thing about Christianity is it's not about what we're leaving behind. It's not about what Jesus saves us from. I used to say that was only half of the story. I don't think it is half of the story. I think it's just a small part of the story. What he has saved us from is a small part, but what he saves us into is huge. And so she's got in her head, if I drink this water, I don't have to keep coming back here. And I think sometimes we get it in our heads. If I become a Christian, if I give my life to Jesus, then I can't live this way anymore. But what you don't realize is that whenever you give your life to Jesus Christ, you enter into something that you never dreamed possible. And suddenly all of this fades away. And you're like, why did I even do it in the first place? And I think that was what was going on with this woman. I went down yesterday afternoon down to City Hall, just give me a few more minutes, and there was a pro-life thing on, and I thought I need to be there. There was just something in me that just felt like I needed to be there, and we were standing just around the City Hall, and I met this girl, and we were standing beside each other and just started talking just about church and the church she went to. And she began to share some of her story with me of how she'd become a Christian. And she was sharing how that, 19 years ago she was out in the clubs and doing that scene. And she was sharing in her story the story of this woman. And she didn't realize it, and she was sharing in her story what I was going to be sharing about today, and I kind of took it as confirmation, because what she was saying was she believed in God, but there was a reluctance to give up this lifestyle until God met with her, changed her life, turned her life around. She gave her life to Jesus Christ, and then she was thinking, why did I even do that in the first place? And 19 years later, she's saved, miraculously saved, and doing absolutely amazing. But she had this same thought in her head, if I become a Christian, I can't do this anymore. And then whenever she became a Christian, she was like, why did I even think like that in the first place? And becoming a Christian is not just about what God has saved us from. Yeah, that's a part of it. But if we could understand what God is calling us into, then that will change your walk with God. And so she has it in her head, give me this water just so that I don't have to keep coming back to this well. And what Jesus is offering her is something that is going to radically change her life forever. He had what she needed. Sometimes in life, we don't know what we need. Sometimes in life, we don't even feel like we have a need. Because sometimes life can be either good, and so, like I said at the start, what I want to introduce God into my life whenever it's good the way it is. And sometimes we don't recognize that something's not right because we have become so accustomed to and have adapted to this way of life that we don't realize and know and understand and accept that there's actually something better for us. And we go through routine in life. It might not be all that bad, but it's like nothing is ever going to change. Why should anything change? And so there's a need that we don't actually know we have. There was a saying that was brought out maybe back in the 70s or the 80s that we have this God-shaped hole in our heart. And what we try to do, and we don't even know it. You want to know why people start taking drugs and people start getting drunk and people want to do all that lifestyle? It's because there's something missing. And so it gets portrayed as this is an amazing life to live. I'm partying, I'm having fun, I'm enjoying myself, when really there's a need in here and they don't know that they have got that need. Some of you have been there, you know what that's like. And then you become a Christian, you give your life to Jesus, and then you realize, I actually wasn't really happy. I thought I was happy, but I actually wasn't really happy. And there are people still like that today, who we will see them out partying at the weekends, smiles on their faces, but come Sunday morning and they can't open their eyes and their head's banging. Why did I do that? I'm not doing that anymore. And they know, because what we're doing is we're trying to look for fulfillment in all of the wrong places. And I think that's what's going on with this woman. She had a need. We don't know the reason why she had 5 husbands. We don't know what went on. But in that day and age, to have 5 husbands and then to be living with a man that wasn't her husband, there's just something not right in this woman's life. And while others sought to talk about her, Jesus chose to fix it and to address it. And so he reaches out to her. He goes to where she's at, and they have a conversation. And Jesus brings it out. Go call your husband. I want this water. I want what you're offering. What you're saying that I need, I want that. Yeah. Okay, go get your husband. I don't have a husband. Yeah, I know. Truth is, you've actually had 5, and the man you're with now is not your husband. Let me just tell you something. Jesus knows. And the stuff you're trying to hide, Jesus knows. He knows. And he's not afraid of it. He's not embarrassed by it. He will not run away from you because of it. He loves you in spite of it and will always love you in spite of it. And he wants to fix it. So I don't know what the 5 husbands are in your life, but Jesus is okay. And he's not in any way looking to run away from it. But he wants to address the 5 husbands, whatever the 5 husbands are in our lives. Jesus wants to address that. As the conversation goes on, they begin to talk about worship, and we'll not get into that at the minute because I want to bring this to a close. Something changes in her. Because the woman who was coming to the well alone, in order to avoid people, in order to avoid the gossip, in order to avoid the looks, in order to avoid the things that are being said about her, runs back to the city, straight to the people that she's been trying to avoid, with a question, with a statement and a question. The statement is, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Come see a man that knows everything about me, but he's not afraid of it. Come see a man who's not ashamed of me, who's not embarrassed about me. Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? And the city must, the people that she's coming into contact with, they obviously know her story. And it's like, what's she on about? She's normally in hiding, and rightly so. Why is she coming to us? There's a man, could he be the Messiah? Because there was talk that the Messiah was there, the Messiah would be coming soon, even among the Samaritans. That's part of the conversation that is had between this woman and Jesus. And in that conversation, I know that Messiah is coming soon, and Jesus replies with, the one that you're talking to, I'm he. I'm the Messiah. There are these moments in people's lives. I love preaching on this stuff about Jesus' interaction with people and how it changes their lives. And there are so many interactions that Jesus has with people. And this being one that changes this woman's life. The woman caught in the act of adultery that is brought to the feet of Jesus, and the religious people want to stone her, and Jesus is able to set her free out of grace and mercy and love. Where are your accusers? They've gone, well, neither do I accuse you, neither do I condemn you. Go, sin no more. Story of Zacchaeus, of Matthew, the disciples, of people that Jesus comes into contact with, who many of them, their lives are a mess, and whenever they come into contact with Jesus, how he just changes everything around. Because he's not afraid of our stories. In fact, he uses our stories. He uses our stories for his glory. And this is what happens with this woman. There's a change in her, and she goes back to her city, to the people that she was avoiding. Come see this man. And they go out to meet Jesus at the well. They go out, who's this man she's talking about? And they ask him to stay for a couple of days. And Jesus stays, and there's a revival that takes place in the city. There's a change that takes place in the city as Jesus unveils himself as the Messiah to those people. Then they get saved, they become believers and followers in Jesus Christ. And there's a revival, there's a change, there's a revolution that takes place in that city. All because of a woman at a well who had a need. And Jesus says to her, I've got what you need, woman. And that never changes. That never changes. Jesus has got what we need. We buy stuff based on want that we think we need. The only thing that we need in life is Jesus Christ. And once we get Jesus Christ, everything else falls into place. Not that it's easy. It's a struggle at times. It's very much a struggle. But whenever we've got Jesus, we've got all we need. He's got everything that we need. Why would you want anyone else? Why would you want anything?